Fans eagerly awaiting the December 17th release of Netflix's The Witcher Season 2 can now get their monsters, mages, and magic fix in the form of director Kwang Il-han's animated spin-off film, The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf. Here's everything you need to know about the prequel's poignant ending. The prequel focuses on the backstory of Vesemir, Geralt of Rivia's mentor and father figure, who's set to be played by Kim Bodnia in the live-action series' second season. This prequel chronicles the events that led him to become a Witcher, as well as the experiences that forced him to rethink his beliefs, priorities, and values. Since those values were passed on to Geralt, the film serves to bridge the gap between the Geralt of Season 1 and the Geralt created over the course of the series' source material by Andrzej Sapkowski. Although The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf is not strictly speaking a depiction of anything from the novels, the film's writer Beau DeMayo was intent on creating something that worked within the canon and franchise. In an interview with CBR, DeMayo discussed the challenge of delving into storylines the books doesn't necessarily investigate while simultaneously staying true to their characters and narrative. He explained, "I started thinking about who was Vesemir at the start of his career, before the horrible things that happened with the Witchers in the canon. In exploring these untapped arcs and focusing on what he called that unanswerable mystery in The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf touches on a number of themes integral to Sapkowski's original works, and help give fans a deeper understanding of the dynamics of both the continent and the various factions within it. It's difficult not to read Sapkowski's original saga as a commentary on the tumultuous and war-torn history of his home country of Poland. Nightmare of the Wolf foregrounds themes such as class and racial divide, societal constructs, and the symbolic relationship between fear and violence, ignorance and hate. When we first meet Vesemir, he's a young, virile witcher equivalent of a bro dude, focused mainly on collecting coin and living it up when he can. But the hunky hexer's laissez-faire attitude belies a deep-seated desire to rise above the impoverished social status of his youth. Flashbacks to Vesemir's childhood reveal that he was born into servitude and longed for nothing more than to free himself and his childhood love Ilyana from the shackles of their station. At the beginning of his narrative, we're shown a Vesemir who still harbors hatred for the nobility he so envies. But by the end of Nightmare of the Wolf, he's determined to live for something more meaningful than glory, coin, and status. Ilyana faces her own fair share of classism when she grows into adulthood, even as she rises through the ranks of society. In Vesemir's absence, Ilyana marries the son of the noble family that claims her and, upon his death, inherits his title, advisor to the king. It soon becomes clear, however, that even as Lady Zerps, she has difficulty commanding the respect her position should by right demand. Though her late husband clearly saw her as an equal, the nobility and their ilk never do. In the end, it's Ilyana's untimely death that finally forces Vesemir to confront the misguidedness of his priorities. Vesemir's priorities of coin and glory are shared and reinforced by his own mentor, Deglin. When Vesemir tells the frightened, abandoned orphans at Kaer Morhen that they'll gain strength, purpose, and respect as the next generation of Witchers, he's merely parroting what he was told by Deglin as a child. The need for this kind of purpose in life is exactly what drives Deglin to engage in the mutagenic alchemy for which the Witchers are ultimately condemned and nearly wiped out. He tells Vesemir, "Monsters were going extinct. I had to protect our way of life." Deglin feels forced to create new monsters because it's only mankind's reliance on the Witchers for protection from the world's scarier beasts that keeps them from turning on and hunting down Witchers. Now they finally have turned on the Witchers, with a little push from the Witcher-hating mage Tetra Gilchrist. Though Ilyana doesn't agree with Deglin's approach, she does tell Vesemir that war was inevitable. As she puts it, killing is easier than tolerating. On the surface, Tetra is the most outspoken racist in Nightmare of the Wolf. Tetra even goes so far as to publish propaganda pamphlets denouncing Witchers, whom she views as corrupt mutations, in contrast to her pure mage lineage, as rogues without virtue.
It's not easy being a Witcher. Trust me. I'd know.
In the end, we learn there's more to Tetra's hateful conviction than meets the eye. Her fervent hatred of Witchers stems from her past experience with a single Witcher, an extremist who tricked a priest into believing that Tetra's mother was possessing him. In the same way that Vesemir's experience with one particular nobleman as a child colored his understanding of the world from there on out, Tetra's traumatic experience with a radical rogue Witcher in turn radicalized her.
Might have slightly underestimated you. Slightly.
The Witcher Nightmare of the Wolf highlights the interconnected, cyclical nature of many of society's worst impulses. Ignorance begets fear, fear begets hate, hate begets violence, and so on. In the end, only Ilyana seems capable of breaking the cycle when she asks Vesemir to forgive the tragically mutated Kitsu for her murder. Nightmare of the Wolf repeatedly explores the idea of illusion, both magical and metaphorical. For most of his life, Vesemir is motivated by the illusion of wealth and status, though as a Witcher, he obtains both. It's a superficial victory and one that doesn't ultimately bring him happiness. Moreover, in the end, it's a literal illusion that causes him to kill the only woman he ever loved. Although it's Vesemir who falls victim to the most devastating illusion of all, it's Tetra who delivers the film's message to viewers. She tells Vesemir of the mage's practice of casting illusions around undesirable foods, making them taste better before going on to explain that the telltale sign of an illusion is its bitter aftertaste. There's more than a little irony embedded in the reaction that some fans had to The Witcher Season 1 creators' decision not to use race or even gender as a basis for casting canonical characters. When showrunner Lauren Hissrich was criticized for altering the arguably only ever implied races of various characters, she had this to say on Twitter. The Witcher is really interesting when it comes to depicting racism because it's about species, not skin color. What makes characters other is the shape of their ears, height, etc. In the books, no one pays attention to skin color. In the series, no one does either, period. It's an instance of life imitating art. Supposed diehard fans of Sapkowski's work directly embodied and made incarnate one of the saga's main allegories. If The Witcher Season 1 introduced audiences to the dynamics of the story's key players, then The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf, introduced them to a deeper understanding of the dynamics of the continent and its history, and in doing so, opened the door for The Witcher Season 2 to answer some of the philosophical questions it poses.
I need to understand some things.
Although we don't discover which of the Kermoran orphans is the young white wolf until the last scene, the impact the events of the story have on his future mentor give audiences a more thorough understanding of the upbringing that created the hero at the heart of the Netflix series.
But they hate us.
There'll always be another monster, Geralt.
Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about the Witcher universe are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.